of my existence these days. All right, let's get this going. First question, McGregor Diaz, of course. With the highly unfortunate events that transpired this week, could there have been any better way this played out than having Nate Diaz fill that spot? It seems as a trash-talking ninja versus trash-talking ninja is perfect. There are two controversial and highly volatile individuals. How big of a chess move could this be for UFC and Conor for that matter? What implications might rise to the surface if Conor wins? How much more will his star power rise with a move? How do you see this fight playing out? Share your wisdom. Well, to the extent that I have any, I will. Man, this is big. And I said last night on 120 Sports that, I'll put this up a little bit. I said last night on 120 Sports that if Conor McGregor, if he wins a close fight, it's still big, of course, but if he stops Nate Diaz, especially if he stops him early, like first or, early second round, it's going to be pandemonium in the sport. It's going to be pandemonium. And people were like, well, Nate Diaz has been stopped before. Yeah, of course. Like, what does that have to do with anything? That doesn't change the equation at all. You mean to tell me that if these two guys fight at welterweight, Nate Diaz gets stopped, that Conor McGregor won't find a clever way to use that to his professional advantage? Boy, keep underestimating Conor McGregor. See what that does for you. Didn't do much for me. I can attest to that fact. You're insane if you don't think that a stoppage win, particularly an early stoppage win, would turn the sport on its head. Now, not as much as it would if he stopped Dos Anjos for that belt. I admit that's a bigger deal. But if you're Conor McGregor and you win, again, via stoppage, especially early, it does so much for you because, number one, you can say you beat a guy. Now, it's been a while since Nate was a top welterweight contender, but he used to be one. Certainly he's an existing top lightweight contender, I think number 6 in the division. So it gives you enough ammo to say, look, I beat a guy who was a contender in 2 divisions, more recently this one. If I want to go back to lightweight, I can. But the fact that the event or the fight is going to take place at 170 or, close to it, basically, tells me that what McGregor can say is, look, I'm already ready for welterweight. He can already jump the queue and go right up to Lawler and skip Dos Anjos or come and circle back around. In other words, it gives him a ton of different options. I'm telling you, whether you like it or not, and you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of McGregor's antics, but I'm not going to sit here and deny the truth. If he goes in there and puts a beating on Nate Diaz and wins spectacularly and fairly early, it's going to be pandemonium. It's going to be complete and total pandemonium because Conor McGregor is going to seize that opportunity and market the hell out of it. There's just no other way to describe it. That Nate Diaz has been stopped before is functionally irrelevant. It's functionally irrelevant. You keep thinking that a McGregor win like this in a bout with these circumstances doesn't do anything for him or mean a whole lot or really say a whole lot. And I realize he's a minus 320 favorite. I'm telling you, if he goes in there and wins early via stoppage, it's going to be a show. He still has a significant advantage in size, reach, cardio, and jiu-jitsu over Conor, who has fought much smaller men until now. McGregor is moving up to 170 for the first time in his career, which only adds more unknown variables to this thriller. Question: how will McGregor and Diaz match up physically as well as psychologically? In your opinion, how do you see this fight going? I don't see either guy breaking mentally, and I don't see either guy putting it on the other one in a way that would even bring that up. Let me verify something before I go to it here. Let's look at some stats for Nate Diaz, which I should have done before the chat, but I didn't. So there you go. Reach is defined as 76 inches, which is rather significant. Let's see where McGregor is at. .74, so he'd have a 2-inch reach disadvantage. He would certainly have a disadvantage on the ground, but I don't know that the disadvantage on the ground would be so significant. I actually think in terms of MMA jiu-jitsu, Diaz's guard is a little bit more lethal than Dos Anjos' top game. Dos Anjos' top game is really good positionally and for ground and pound. It's not so good for jiu-jitsu. It's not great, amazing, oh my God. Diaz's guard will give a lot of people problems. I don't know if that's really what's going to come into play against McGregor, to be honest. I find it a little bit hard to believe, actually. I just think they're going to slug it out one way or the other. But yeah, certainly I would say who has the better jiu-jitsu? Diaz certainly has the better jiu-jitsu. He's been a black belt, a high-level black belt for a while, and has a lot more in-sport competition wins against credentialed competitors. But I don't think that, again, I don't really think that's the big issue here. So he has a 2-inch reach disadvantage, does McGregor, which would be interesting. Yeah, this is the big change for me. The big change for me is that they went from trying to face a Muay Thai guy who's short, stocky, has good wrestling, well-rounded, can mix it up all three, and now they're going to get a guy who's long and lanky and is much more centered on his boxing. That's the big change to me. The size issue, I don't know. Diaz was never a big welterweight to begin with, and when we see him get muscled around by Rory McDonald, you kind of get a sense of that. So, but again, that goes back to my previous point. You can be like, well, how can you say that, Luke, and then say that he can then use the win at welterweight to make a claim? Because what Conor McGregor can do is beyond what you might think is a reasonable conclusion. That's why. If he has a win in the welterweight division, he's going to say that, and he's going to convince you that, or at least people in management, that he deserves more of a chance in that division, whether or not you or I think that is the case. In any case, with Diaz, this is going to be a lot of striking between the two. As you know, Diaz, volume striker, kind of like his brother. Not a lot of in and out movement, which I think is going to give Diaz some problems against someone like McGregor, who's going to be cutting angles on him. I really like McGregor in this fight to win. But I like the fact that he didn't automatically. I mean, look, if he had gotten the title shot automatically, that would have been fine. But I think there is something kind of nice about him having to go fight Chad Mendes first and then getting Jose Aldo, and having to fight Nate Diaz first and then either getting Dos Anjos or Lawler, or however it all plays out. I kind of like it both ways, to be honest. Kind of makes me feel like, he really had to earn it. When it's all said and done, and if the fight after this one is Dos Anjos, assuming that McGregor wins, what are you going to say? Like, he didn't face enough of the right guys? I mean, okay, I guess he could have fought 3 contenders at lightweight, but, who has time for that? This is about making the biggest fights he can and about finding out just how good he is, and facing Mendes and beating him, and then Aldo and then beating him, and then Diaz presumably beating him, and then, again, Dos Anjos or Lawler. It's a pretty nice resume. So I kind of like that a little bit, that he has an extra little layer of meritocracy to go through. And it's another different kind of opponent. Chad Mendes and Nate Diaz couldn't be further apart in terms of their games, and he's going to have to go through both of them if he wants to get where he wants to go. I really like that. I really appreciate that. I think that's very cool, very interesting. There's a lot to like about this fight, and I'm leaning heavily McGregor. Maybe you lean Diaz. That's cool. No one knows what's going to happen, but I just appreciate the fact that McGregor is sticking with it, that Nate Diaz volunteered, that it's a different kind of fight than you expect, that there's going to be, at least for the next 10 days, probably some decent fireworks between the two. The stare down today is going to be awesome. By the way, we're going to have a camera crew there at today's presser, so as soon as this chat is over, don't switch. We got a lot of coverage coming your way. Pardon me. It's going to be awesome. Who will likely weigh more come fight night? Diaz has his tall, lean mass. I mean, maybe Diaz, since he has him in camp, but we'll see. True, false. I've been hearing it all over. With a win over Diaz, McGregor fights Lawler 200. I mean, who's to say that's false? I'll say it's false just because maybe Dos Anjos is next. But trickle-down effect for Bellator. This Friday's card will have pumped up the ratings because... I'll say it's false just because maybe Dos Anjos is next. But trickle-down effect for Bellator. This Friday's card will have pumped up the ratings because of last Friday's show in Houston. There might be some trickle over. Silva humiliates Bisping. False.